Port Royal. At the mouth of Kingston Harbor, beneath warm Caribbean waters, lies an entire city, preserved exactly as it was on the morning of June 7th, 1692. Port Royal was once called the wickedest city on earth. 6,500 souls packed into just 51 acres, one tavern for every 10 residents. It processed more wealth than Boston and New York combined. Pirates like Sir Henry Morgan would spend thousands of pieces of 8 in a single night of debauchery, before being knighted and appointed lieutenant governor. Then, at exactly 11:43 in the morning, a magnitude 7.5 earthquake struck. We know the precise time because a pocket watch was recovered from the wreckage. The earthquake triggered liquefaction. The sandy ground turned to liquid beneath their feet. People did not run, they were swallowed alive. Eyewitnesses watched in pure horror as the earth ripped open, devouring crowds whole, then slammed shut again with merciless force, leaving men, women, and children entombed upright, buried to their necks, still breathing, still conscious, staring at the sky as the life slowly drained from their eyes. 2/3 of the entire city slid into the sea in under 2 minutes. 2,000 souls erased in an instant. 3,000 more wasted away in agony from disease and despair. And then the graveyards themselves were torn open. The long-buried dead rose, floating silently through the harbor waters, drifting among the freshly killed. More than 330 years later, the vast majority of this sunken city remains untouched. Shops still stand with merchandise on the shelves. Houses still hold furniture, and the final moments of their owners. It is an underwater Pompeii, officially acknowledged by UNESCO as one of the most important archaeological sites on Earth. Acknowledged, but largely unopened, still waiting in the dark. Nanny Town. Deep in the Blue Mountains of Portland, accessible only by a multi-day hike through dense UNESCO rainforest, lie the remains of a settlement the British Empire could not find, could not conquer, and could not destroy. This was Nanny Town, the stronghold of Queen Nanny and the Windward Maroons, escaped enslaved Africans who waged brutal guerrilla war against the British and won. Queen Nanny, believed to be of royal Asante descent from Ghana, stands today as the only female among Jamaica's 7 national heroes. Her face graces the $500 bill, what Jamaicans proudly call a nanny. In the 1990s, archaeologist Dr. E. Kofi Agorsa uncovered 2 distinct layers of civilization. The upper layer held maroon artifacts. The deeper layer revealed something far older: Taino earthenware, stone tools, and shell artifacts predating the Maroons by centuries. The Maroons had built their fortress directly on top of an ancient indigenous settlement. No record explains how they knew it was there. Certain engraved stones at the site may predate both civilizations entirely. The British finally destroyed Nanny Town in 1734, yet the treaty that followed granted the Maroons 500 acres and official freedom, one of the only times an enslaved people forced a European empire to negotiate as equals. The Maroon communities Queen Nanny founded still govern themselves today. The war ended, but the mystery of what lies beneath their foundation has not. Mountain River Cave. 148 painted and carved figures, one of the largest collections of indigenous rock art in the Caribbean. The Taino created them using bat guano, charcoal, and ochre. Some depict birds and turtles. Others show forms no modern researcher has been able to identify. Not animals, not humans, not celestial objects. One gallery sits at the base of a 20-meter vertical shaft. The artists descended in near total darkness, carrying their pigments to paint on walls no living person could easily see. The paintings face inward, toward the earth. If these images were not created for human eyes, who were they created for? In Taino cosmology, caves were the wombs of the world, sacred places where life began, and the boundary between the living and the dead grew thin. Jamaica is the only island in the Caribbean where indigenous rock art is found almost exclusively underground. Every other island has open-air art. Jamaica's is hidden, sealed in darkness. No one has explained why. The cave was declared a national monument in 2003, 500 years after the art was created. The figures still have no names. The Cockpit Country Labyrinth. Across 500 square miles of west-central Jamaica, there is a limestone labyrinth that no one has fully mapped. The Cockpit Country, a karst wilderness of conical hills, sinkholes, and hundreds of underground caverns connected by rivers that disappear into the rock and emerge miles away. During the First Maroon War, escaped enslaved Africans turned this labyrinth into a weapon. They launched ambushes from ridgelines and vanished into terrain the British could not navigate. Soldiers became so terrified of attack from behind that they rode in pairs on a single horse, one facing forward, one facing backward. This is why it is called the Land of Look Behind. Place names still whisper warnings: me no send, you no come. Don't come back. Gunsea. The Maroons forced a peace treaty in 1739. The same unforgiving terrain that protected them then still protects the region today, now as a restricted ecological zone, but entire sections of the interior have never been reached by modern researchers. What structures or carvings lie in those unmapped spaces remains unknown. Deep in Windsor Cave, thick bat guano deposits may contain thousands of years of climate data, a natural archive that scientists are only beginning to read. Judgment Cliff. On June 7, 1692, the same day Port Royal was swallowed, an entire limestone ridge in St. Thomas collapsed in a catastrophic avalanche. It buried the valley below, dammed the Yalas River, and erased a plantation from existence. Enslaved people's oral tradition tells that the mountain fell on a wicked planter, a man so cruel that the earth itself swallowed him as divine retribution. The same earthquake that destroyed the wickedest city on earth also took a wicked man 30 miles away in the exact same moment. Two symbols of colonial cruelty, destroyed simultaneously, one by sea, one by stone. The enslaved people did not see this as coincidence. They saw it as coordination. This account has survived for over 13 generations, passed down orally, never written, and one of the longest surviving oral histories in Jamaica. Judgment Cliff still looks like a fresh wound. After more than 3 centuries, the landscape has never healed. Colbeck Castle. Near Old Harbor in St. Catherine stands a massive stone fortification with 4 corner towers, defensive walls, and what appears to have been a moat when in the Caribbean. No one can prove who built it. No one can prove when it was built. No one can prove whether it was ever even inhabited. It is traditionally attributed to Colonel John Colbeck, who received 1,300 acres in 1655. But Colbeck died in 1682, and the architecture is clearly consistent with the 18th century, decades after his death. There are no construction records, no architect, no builder's log. The name Colbeck Castle does not appear in any official document until 1896, over 200 years after it was supposedly built. For 2 centuries, a building with 4 towers and a moat existed in a complete bureaucratic void. The Jamaica National Heritage Trust declared it a heritage site in 1990. They preserved it. They still cannot explain who built it. The Hidden Zemis. In 1792, 3 carved wooden Taino figures were discovered hidden in a cave near the summit of the Carpenter's Mountains. A rain-giver deity, a birdman, and a ceremonial stand for hallucinogenic ritual snuff. They had survived nearly 300 years in a tropical climate where wood normally rots in months. No one has explained how, but preservation is not the deepest question. It is intent. These carvings were not abandoned. They were placed deliberately, hidden by someone who wanted them protected. The Spanish arrived in 1494. Within 50 years, the Taino were declared extinct, worked to death, ravaged by disease, erased from colonial records. Yet these gods survived 3 centuries beyond the supposed end of their people. If hidden before the conquests, someone foresaw the destruction. If hidden after, surviving Taino remained active in the mountains far longer than any record acknowledges. The 3 Zemis are now in the British Museum, 4,600 miles from home. The gods survived the Spanish. They survived the jungle. They did not survive the British Museum. Rose Hall Great House. On a hill above Montego Bay stands Rose Hall Great House, forever linked to Annie Palmer, the infamous White Witch who allegedly practiced voodoo, murdered 3 husbands, and terrorized the enslaved with dark power. It is one of the most famous ghost stories in the Caribbean, and most of it was invented. The White Witch title was created by novelist Herbert G. DeLisser in 1929, nearly a century after abolition. Historians have found no evidence of the murders, the witchcraft, or the terror. The real Annie Palmer Palmer was simply a real woman. The legend that surrounds her was fiction marketed as history. Today, Rose Hall offers haunted night tours built around the novel's dramatic narrative. The real horror is not a ghost. It is the plantation system itself. The undocumented suffering of countless enslaved people whose stories were never recorded. A fictional witch replaced them. Folly Mansion. On a peninsula in Portland, overlooking the sea on 3 sides, stand the ruins of a 60-room Roman-style villa built in 1905 by Alfred Mitchell for his wife, Annie Tiffany, heiress to the Tiffany jewelry fortune. The mansion had electric lights, a steam generator, an indoor swimming pool, and imported Italian marble. Mitchell even brought Jamaica's second automobile, a Rolls-Royce. He kept peacocks and monkeys roaming the grounds. Then the sea destroyed it from the inside. Seawater had been used in the concrete. The salt corroded the steel reinforcement, cracking the structure from its own bones outward. Mitchell died in 1911. The roof collapsed in 1936. The monkeys escaped to a nearby island, still called Monkey Island today. A building completed in 1905 now looks 2,000 years old. The same sea that surrounded his paradise is the sea that ate it alive. Green Grotto Cave. Near Discovery Bay, and where Columbus first landed in 1494, there is a cave system whose underground lake connects to the Caribbean Sea through passages that have never been mapped. The walls glow with luminous green algae. It is not paint, it is alive. Every major civilization in Jamaica's history used this cave. The Taino held sacred ceremonies here. The Spanish hid from the British. Runaway enslaved people escaped through it. Arms were smuggled to Cuba between the wars. The government even stored rum during World War II. 5 civilizations, 1 cave. The same darkness drawing them all in. How deep the system goes, where the flooded passages truly lead, and what lies in the tunnels connecting this cave to the open ocean, none of it has been determined. Sevilla la Nueva. In St. Anne's Bay lie the foundations of Jamaica's first European settlement, Sevilla la Nueva, founded in 1509. It was abandoned within 25 years. Beneath the Spanish foundations lies a Taino village called Maima, hillside terracing and circular houses that predate European arrival by centuries. The Spanish did not build beside the Taino, they built on top of them. Seville is one of the only places on Earth where 4 civilizations, Taino, Spanish, African, and British, can be studied in a single dig, layer by layer. The deepest layers remain unexcavated. Near this site in 1503, Columbus, stranded and starving, consulted an almanac, predicted a lunar eclipse, and told the Taino chief that his god would inflame the moon in wrath. When the moon turned blood red, the Taino resumed food deliveries. He used science as a weapon. He used their generosity against them. 4 civilizations are buried in this soil, each one built on the silence of the one before. 11 structures, 1 island, and a truth we are rarely told. The history of Jamaica barely scratches the surface. Beneath the resorts, there are sunken cities. Behind the tourist trails, there are caves with paintings no one can name. Under colonial foundations, there are villages that were deliberately erased. And in the mountains, there are gods that outlasted the empires that tried to destroy them. Jamaica is not a place where history ended. It is a place where history was buried, and the earth has been trying to give it back ever since. If this is the kind of history you came for, subscribe. We go where the textbooks stop.